On this episode of Sides, we talk about if the morning after pill deserves a spot in vending machines.
If access to it is so widespread, it becomes a viable plan A.
And do all of your friends share the same views in politics?
It's a really hard thing for me to put my personal values aside and be like, I am gonna be besties with this libertarian. And Jeremy Lin's dreadlocks, are they cultural appreciation or appropriation?
It's about the way that the people who traditionally wore that hairstyle have been treated by modern society. Christian, it is good to see you, my friend.
It's good to be back, folks.
You enjoying Chicago?
It's really good. It's really good. But
awesome.
It's good to be home.
Anyway, moving on, let's check out what you guys were vibing with and what you guys weren't vibing with. So the okays, no ways. Okays are the things you felt blessed about this week, and no ways were the things that you were not having. Gracie?
Yeah, so my okay of the week is schools that give you like a mental health or reading week in the fall. And I think most people here, are you on now?
First one.
That's beautiful. I don't have that, and I am.
Nor do I.
And I need it. I need it.
Yeah.
You know, I need to sleep. So that's my okay of the week. I would encourage it. I promote it. My no way of the week is walking out of football games because people decide to protest racism and police brutality. So, I mean, the Vice President of the United States decided to walk out of the Colts and the 49ers game this week because he didn't agree with people protesting racism, which is pretty horrifying.
I gotta jump in there, but isn't that his right to protest by walking out?
I'm not saying he doesn't have the right to do it. I'm just saying it's not okay. Like
you just weren't feeling it. You weren't feeling that kind of
guy,
thing.
but like I'm gonna then say that like that's messed up, and I'm gonna do it on here. So yeah, those are my okays and no ways of the week.
Teddy, your okays, your no ways?
Okay, my okay this week is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, saying no to the Neshoba Brook Bakery for trying to put love as an ingredient on their granola. And I feel like it's so insulting to other granola companies, which clearly put love in it. I think inherently all granola has love in it, and whoever decides to put it there, it should be taken off. It's an affront to granola everywhere, and I hope we never see love on ingredients ever, ever again. Now for my no way, we're gonna get a little bit serious. It kind of pisses me off, this culture we have of people who try to protect those who may engage in sexual misconduct or sexual harassment.
Yeah,
obviously, we have all these allegations about Weinstein coming out, and what irks me especially is his entire board, who is now suddenly doing something, but these allegations stretch back all these years, you know. Why now of all times? And what's the deal with them keeping it under wraps so long, then all of a sudden trying to look good by doing this? I don't think they're absolved. That's a huge no way from me.
Christian, what about you? Your no ways?
Can I start my okay?
Sure, why
I'll
not?
give that a go. My okay made me smile this week. Obviously, very bad shooting in Las Vegas, worst in modern American history. Lots of physical and mental health problems the victims and the survivors are having. Dogs are being used as therapy to help people cope with PTSD and what have you. Does that not make you smile?
Sorry, I've been paying attention more to the dogs than I've been paying attention to you.
Fair enough.
Your no ways?
My no way, here's what I have an issue with. The Nobel Peace Prize was given out this week. This lovely lady right here, she chose that in the capacity that she has as this beacon of diplomacy and being a role model for all these people who support peace and prosperity and compassion, that she should call a world leader a moron on Twitter.
Wait, what's her relation to the Nobel Peace Prize?
She won it for, I believe, nuclear nonproliferation. So she's a high-level individual. But the point is, it doesn't matter what she is. She's a role model. This is not appropriate language for anyone who wins the Nobel Peace Prize to be using.
Donald Trump is a moron?
Even if he is. I'm not going to say he is or isn't.
Hold on.
He's a world leader. You can't use that language when you're that person. It's not appropriate. It's not right.
All right, now it's my turn for the okays, no ways. So my okays of the week was, well, it's gonna be my okays of the month, is awesome Halloween makeup tutorials. So here we have a Canadian YouTuber. This is Tasha Leland, and you can see that she's doing some like really, really awesome different tutorials and just super cool stuff and spooky. And my favorite thing about Halloween is that you can be anyone who you want to be, and it's chill. So.
I feel like people put so much emphasis on the costume now. The makeup's really what's gonna.
Honestly, like the skill is unbelievable. Because like, look at something like that, the Tasha Leland recreated. Like her stuff is amazing. All these other YouTubers have this amazing skill to go out there and like look completely different and just super sick. So my no way of the week is gonna get serious, just like Teddy's. So we had Dove posted an ad on their Facebook page, and so essentially what the ad was is it begins with this black woman in a black t-shirt or a dark brown t-shirt. She rips the t-shirt off, and then all of a sudden she's a white woman. So the indication here, from what I can visually see and what people who thought the video was racist, they thought that, okay, black skin is bad, you use Dove, and then you become white, and that's thing. They actually did end up removing the commercial or the ad and then posted a little apology, but I wasn't feeling it.
And we should add that the actress, the black actress, said that she felt it was important that they selected her to begin with to be in the ad. But still, obviously, extremely insensitive and wrong. Should not be out there.
Another thing that we can talk about in regards to insensitive and wrong is our next debate, so let's see what it's about.
Would you buy pop out of a vending machine? Candy? What about a morning after pill? Multiple US colleges, including Stanford, have installed morning after pill vending machines in order to give women access to emergency contraception at any time. To clarify, the morning after pill is not an abortion pill. The abortion pill terminates a pregnancy. The morning after pill helps prevent a pregnancy, at least if it's taken in the hours after unprotected sex. Some say that making this pill easy to purchase promotes risky sexual behavior. But others say it's a woman's reproductive right to buy it, and providing convenient access makes a whole lot of sense. What do you think? Should morning after pill vending machines be on college campuses?
Okay, so my thoughts on this. So my immediate reaction is, even the way the video started where it was like, you buy soda from a vending machine, you buy candy from a vending machine, would you buy the morning after pill? I think it like very much turns it into this like novelty thing to even say like a vending. It essentially is like making the morning after pill more accessible. And like, you know, whether it's like a storefront or it means that people can access it on college campuses. And I am like totally there for harm reduction. I am like totally there for accessibility. And I think there's this really common misconception that when we give people the ability to reduce their harm and make safe and informed choices, that they're gonna like abuse those choices and suddenly become like, I don't know, like sexual deviants or like something like really absurd like that. But the truth is, one, taking the morning after pill, it's not a like fun thing. It's not like I'm gonna be nauseous all day, I'm gonna like mess up my period. Like, it's not like an exciting thing. This doesn't make suddenly people super reckless. What it does is it like gives people options. And I think it's great. I think it's awesome that people can access something that allows them to feel like empowered and make choices over their own body.
You know, getting on one topic there that you kind of talked about is like this whole thing about like risky sexual behavior. And I'm sitting there going, what the heck is risky sexual behavior? Like, if you want to go and like have one night stands and whatever, and occasionally like, whoops, you know, you have a one night stand, you don't have a condom and it happens, well, that's cool, chill, like that's your personal choice. So when everyone says, oh, risky sexual behaviors, like you said, like,
but I mean, no, but it is risky. Like we know what the risks. We're just defining what the risks are.
Exactly. So then I think
two things. You probably hit on one. Number one being, the morning after pill deals with pregnancy. It doesn't deal with the fact that sex can bring out a lot of unwanted things besides pregnancy, like disease. But number two, and I think more importantly, the pill is called Plan B because it should be Plan B. And there's a certain point that you have to realize where if access to it is so widespread, it becomes a viable Plan A, which it should not be.
Think that about,
no, because
people always think that about harm reduction. They think it's like some great thing. Like the same thing goes for Narcan. When people think that you can access naloxone, that suddenly people love overdosing. No. It's not a pleasurable experience. In the same way that
wait, no. Gets drunk and knocks it over. You have to get rid of all those pills.
Let me get in
Take
here.
a breather.
Okay, the reason it's in a vending machine is because it's accessible. Right now, I've taken the morning.
Drugstore's right there.
No, let me talk for this one because this is my serious point. You're not getting on this. I have taken the Plan B pill before, the morning after pill, and if you are slamming and doing the watusi at 2 o'clock at night, what pharmacy is open at 2 o'clock at night? You tell me, and it is much more effective. No, there is no problem. I live
24 hours, 95% effectiveness in 24 hours. You can go to a drugstore in 24 hours. It's gonna be right on campus. It's gonna be right by.
But what do you want to wait?
So my friends and I the other day, we were hanging out and we were talking, we were wondering, is the bush back? And I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, first of all, did it ever leave? And if it did leave and it came back, is it here to stay? And we're talking, and I sort of think to myself the way in which, you know, especially femme people's body hair is like never discussed in the public sphere, but it's something that occupies my friends' conversation all the time. And it kind of got me thinking that maybe the important thing isn't whether or not the bush is back. Maybe the important thing is that we talk about it, you know? So yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. Is the bush back, and how important is it that we get rid of the taboo around discussing femme people's body hair? And the taboo around femme people's body hair.
When an NBA player makes the news, it's usually about hoops. But this time, it's about hair. Jeremy Lin is a Taiwanese-American basketball player who plays for the Brooklyn Nets. This season, he's got dreads. He says he spoke with African-American teammates and staff before getting the hairstyle, and he hopes this is the start of a dialogue about our differences. But critics say it's a problem and a form of cultural appropriation. You can't just adopt a hairstyle belonging to another culture when members of that community are routinely stigmatized for wearing it that way. What do you think? Are Jeremy Lin's dreads an example of cultural appreciation or cultural appropriation?
Okay, so here's what I think about it. I come from Ethiopia, which is the land of Haile Selassie, the Rasta Master. And in my opinion, I really think sometimes we put too much emphasis on these items within these cultures. Because especially when we're looking at a guy like this who talked with, you know, his team. When they say he talked with his team, we're talking about he talked to all the black people he knew, okay? He tried his best. He made a post going into the history and saying, listen, I really want to do this, I want to go into it. He tried so much to try and show that he was trying to appreciate the culture while doing it, and people still put him on blast. So I think that is too hard a line. I think it's perfectly okay. And if you've seen any of Jeremy Lin's other hairstyles, I think it would be cruel to make him to go back to any of those, okay? Let him wear the dreads.
I have a tweet from someone.
Let's hear it.
Anna says, if you get offended by a hairstyle, the problem is definitely not the hair. I think that's maybe on this. No,
Okay.
I don't know.
Let me get into this tweet.
Yeah, unpack that.
Okay, first let me clear my position on the Jeremy Lin thing. I think he's appreciating it. I think he did his research and did everything he could to make sure that it was proper. And personally, in my opinion, I think you should share cultures. On this one, I think maybe Anna has an actual opinion on if it's about the hairstyle. Well, if it's about your getting the hair, it's not about the hairstyle. It's about the way that the people who traditionally wore that hairstyle have been treated by modern society. So I think Anna may have a point in that there is some stuff going into this is where, you know, a guy from Asia, or Taiwan, I think, can wear dreads, and it's kind of like not okay, but not super bad. But then there's people who are getting criticized and having a lot of issues in their life because of wearing dreads. I think that Anna may be onto something of maybe not now, maybe sometime else.
You know, in my opinion, this is gonna sound extremely simplistic, but I feel like it has to be said. This is a hairstyle. I appreciate that he did all of the outreach, that he did the research, the writing, talking to his friends, but at the end of the day, this is hair. This isn't, like, no culture can own hair. And I believe that he's not appropriating any sort of culture. He's just wearing his hair in a way that he seems to like.
While I do agree with you, like maybe my own principles, just to play the devil's advocate and try to see from like other people's sides,
yeah.
I do think, okay, if you, let's say someone went to a party with like a bindi on and they were dressed up for Halloween or something, and they're going like super ham with it, I can kind of see how someone would have some sort of issue with that.
I think, well, I'm super white, so I don't think that
Tell me about it.
I don't think that, I don't think like I'm the best person to be like taking up space in the conversation, but I do know a lot of really amazing and incredible people of color that would identify this as being cultural appropriation, and I sort of also side with that.
Even though, like, I recognize that white people and black people have a different place to play in the conversation about this kind of thing, I don't think that it's fair for anyone based on their skin color to remove themselves from an argument entirely.
Removing yourself is different than like taking up space.
No,
I'm saying I think this is a time for me to listen rather than speak, and I think that that's okay to say.
So I've been thinking a lot about something that is personally irritating my soul. As a lot of you know out there, I go to university. I've gone to 2 different universities in the last year. And the most frustrating thing about university is not the teachers, it's not the test, it's not the coursework, it's parking. My absolute pet peeve of university is parking. Like literally, you have to sit there and you pay a humongous amount of tuition, and then you have to go and realize, oh my God, I have to pay a humongous amount of parking costs. Like, why can't parking be included in my tuition? Especially since I've gone to 2 commuter schools, where these schools know that their major student base is commuting. So how come you have parking lots that are A, 5 parking spaces big, so even if I did want to pay for parking, I couldn't actually find a parking spot, and B, why are you charging students so much for this? You're irritating my soul about the fact that A, I can't find parking, B, if I want to buy a parking pass, it's $800 or some ridiculous amount, and as a student, your budget, you don't have money for that. Parking passes sell out super fast. If you don't get one, you have to pay $15 a day, and that adds up super fast. So parking is just my biggest irritation of the week. Cannot do it.
So you know what I was thinking? So I was listening to a video, it was a trap remix of Auctioneers on rap beats. And I was thinking, they would probably be so good if they were rappers. Oh my God, they would be so good. One, when you rap and you're using all these syllables and you're going so fast, you gotta be able to have a certain technique in your voice, in the way that you breathe, in the way that you are interacting with other people, in the way that you're listening at other people, sticking their hands up to make an offer or whatever. And I was thinking, they'll probably be really good rappers. Yeah, so much appreciation for Auctioneers. Shout out Auctioneers.
Are you friends with people whose politics you just don't agree with? It turns out most Americans hang out with people who think a lot like they do, at least politically. A recent survey shows that a majority of Republicans and Democrats have just a few or no close friends in the opposing party. In other words, Democrats hang out with Democrats, Republicans hang out with Republicans. What do you think? Is it important to have friends whose political beliefs differ from your own? Or are you happy hanging out with like-minded people?
Number one, who you choose in your friends is a very big mosaic of different factors that include sense of humor, what you enjoy, whom you trust. Political views is just a small but important part of that. In my opinion, though, I wouldn't go picking friends based on their political views, but among my friends, I look at the people I enjoy spending time with. A lot of them challenge me because I like to be challenged, and you know what? Sometimes I'm wrong. And a lot of the time, it seems, in the age that we live in, that no one admits that they're wrong. It's not that they're wrong, it's just they discredit other people, they ignore, whatever. They don't engage. I like to engage. I like to be forced to defend myself, and you know what? Sometimes I have to turn a 180 in that process. So I think this is important. What do you guys think?
If you want to be friends with someone from a different political party, there's obviously going to be things that y'all are going to disagree on. So I think it's just having the respect and the common ground to be able to step back and be like, you have your opinion, I have my opinion, both for valid reasons, for different things that we want to discuss and live our lives, but we agree to disagree. So that's kind of where I come in, is you should go for it and you should do it and you should have different friends. But that agree to disagree is the most important things in those types of relationships.
I don't totally agree with you. For me, I will say, I'm not saying for everyone, but for myself, my political beliefs stem from just my personal values. I believe in equity, I believe in equality, I believe in justice, I believe in all these things. And it's a really hard thing for me to put my personal values aside and be like, I'm gonna be besties with this libertarian. I can just feel it. I just don't think
that's assuming that libertarianism is against all those things. A lot of libertarians would say it isn't.
That's really interesting, but I think if you look at the
Are libertarians against having friends, or?
No, I just mean, and I mean, if you look at the history of libertarianism, if you look at the father of libertarianism, you look at John Locke, and you look at what that means to be a libertarian, I think it's really hard for me.
People on the
right.
right.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and that's why I'm not saying it works for everyone. I'm just saying I can't separate my values and people that I know that have certain political beliefs have very different values than me. So I'm not saying it can't be, that's not how my best friends work.
You know what? And me personally, I think politics is the #1 most important thing in the world. Yeah. However, I also think that instead of even agreeing to disagree, sometimes it doesn't need to come up. Sometimes if you know someone's so different from you and you're like, hey, but he's a great bowling partner, you're not gonna keep going on about, hey, buddy, think you're a little racist. I think.
But I don't want a racist bowling partner. Because I can have a bowling partner that's not racist.
But are you just gonna cut someone off the moment you find? That's the issue.
Like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's so. I don't think it's so intentional. That's why I'm saying it's so personal to me, because it's not like I meet someone and I go, don't hang out with me. It's this thing where it just comes up and I just realize that my views don't. I'm picking on libertarians. I'm sorry. It's lots of people, but like.
Sometimes you also need a break. Sometimes you just need apolitical friends. I got plenty of those. They're great.
I could maybe be kind of friends with someone who has an opposite political view than I do, but not a close friend. I just think that politics are directly attributed with like who you think is important in society, and so I couldn't imagine having a best friend who just doesn't see eye to eye with me on that.
Personally, I just can't stand Republicans. Their arguments just don't make sense half of the time. It's kind of like trying to have a conversation with a brick wall. So no, I can't be friends with someone who doesn't have the same political views as me.
It's also good to be friends with people that have different political views. I think that that's good because then you can learn from each other, maybe change your mindset, and you can also learn that everybody has different opinions, but you can still be friends with them.
Coming soon, brand new emojis. Apple just rolled out hundreds of new emojis that will be available in future software updates, including a head of broccoli, a mermaid, and gender-neutral emojis. Who gets to decide on new emojis? That would be the Unicode Consortium. That's Unicode, not unicorn. Emojis may mean fun, but they also mean business. Hillary Clinton tried to connect with her supporters using emojis, and they've been called the fastest-growing language of all time. What do you think about emojis? Love them? Hate them? Think they're a valuable form of communication?
You know, I don't know if I have a unique take, but here's my take on emojis. My take is that emojis provide you with something over the phone and over a screen that regular texting does not. Like in person, you've got body language and you've got facial expressions, and you talk to people and you can visually see their reaction. And you don't get that over the phone because it's just sentences. And I think emojis actually add another dimension to the online world. And I think in a world where we are increasingly online and more just doing all that kind of stuff, I think emojis are great. I think they should be incorporated, and I really, really, really do think that we should have a broad range of emojis representing everyone so that everyone feels included and is able to express the way they want to feel in emojis. Christian, you look perplexed.
92% of people use emojis. Consider me a proud 8%er. I like words. I love to read. I love to learn new words. I sent my friend a joke. He laughed. He sent me this emoji with like a smiling face with like water coming out. Like, was it a workout?
I'm pretty sure that's called tears.
But I don't know like what's going on. Use words. Use words. Use words.
So is he
we have a beautiful language at our disposal. English. Use it.
That's really interesting to me, because you say that like to you emojis are like not accessible, but like one of my views on emojis, that the thing, like I don't use a lot of emojis, but one of the things I think that emojis do advocate for is like learning how to communicate in ways that are like other than words, because words aren't accessible to everyone. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot about people who have like learning disabilities where it's like difficult to type. Like that's a very real thing, and it's a lot easier sometimes to send a picture of a car like I'm on my way rather than typing it like, hey, I'm in my car, I'm on my way. I just think like more ways to communicate is better than less, and like the more ways we can include people in on conversations. Like I just love accessibility. Like everyone should get to speak the way they want.
I feel like people take emojis so seriously now, like talking fastest growing language. I feel like emojis are like hamsters, okay? They're really dumb and abused by young children, but goddamn do I love them. And every time I see someone like take emojis so serious, I think, okay, yeah, you have that, but we are coming to a point where I think it's almost sickening.
We have a guest.
What?
Yo,
Maria,
oh my God.
It's great to have you.
Come in, Maria. Where you at?
I don't know.
Hey, what's up?
Maria.
Hi.
Thank you for coming and chilling.
Oh my God.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Oh my goodness. This is very, very exciting.
Alrighty, so Maria has a background in art. She's an artist, does a lot of cool stuff. She's kind of internet famous. She's at Hate Copy. So Maria, I have some questions for you. Are you ready for them?
I think so.
All right, let's get into it. So, I don't assume you started in art, so how did you get into art, and especially this type of art?
So when I was in high school, you know, in grade 11, you get to pick your own courses. So I was like, okay, I want to be an artist. I want to pick all the art courses. And my parents, who are very traditional, you know, they're both scientists. They've been scientists for over 35 years. And they were like, absolutely no. So they went to the school and they changed all my courses to business. So I actually wasn't allowed to go into the arts. So I figured, okay, what's the best way for me to cheat this so I can get into the arts like after I graduate? I ended up going into advertising and became a copywriter. And copywriters are people that write commercials for a living. So for a couple of years after graduating college, I basically sold toilet paper. Like I wrote jingles and I wrote you know, advertisement for beer brands and things like that.
Did you ever feel like a personal connection to a brand you were selling? Like, did you only use one type of toilet paper? Or?
Only when they gave me free toilet paper. Yeah, a lot of, I mean, I wrote commercial, like the funniest part of the entire career, and that's when I kind of knew I was kind of over it, was when I was writing a jingle for a coffee shop.
And you're like, this is lit. This is where it's at.
This is what my life is now. I'm writing jingles. This is great.
Okay, so you wrote a book, very good book, if I can plug it. It's called Trust No Auntie, not Auntie. And for the people at home, what is an auntie and why shouldn't you trust them?
An auntie is an older presence in your life that is not necessarily family, but somebody that pretends like they're family and tries to give you advice on what to do with your life, even though they just met you. Yeah, and I think Trust No Auntie, I mean, the book itself revolves around, you know, different kinds of aunties and all that, but it really is about focusing on what you're doing and dodging negative advice or bad advice when you hear it.
How can you avoid growing up and becoming an auntie? Like, what steps should you take?
I think it's inevitable. I mean, I'm gonna become an auntie one day. I feel like, you know.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, it's gonna happen.
So we just were doing a segment on Jeremy Lin and his dreadlocks. Jeremy Lin is a basketball player. He's Taiwanese. He got dreadlocks, and people are being critical. We were having a conversation whether it's appreciation or appropriation. We're wondering what your take is.
I don't know much about the Taiwanese culture, but I think when it comes to, I mean, I don't even know if I have a place to speak on whether somebody should or should not be wearing dreads, but I feel like if the community that is offended by that, if they're saying that they're offended by that, you should probably listen and go, okay, you know, I don't know, apologize or kind of take it back, and I don't know. I mean, I would feel a ways if somebody was, I mean, you know, doing a Halloween, or sorry, Indian-themed Halloween party or like an Indian-themed something, and they're not Indian or they're not Desi, I feel like I would be a little bit offended by that. You know, if somebody was just wearing a sari as a costume,
what if they had like a bunch
joke.
of like Indian friends or something that took them with them and was like, they gave them their sari and they were like, come on, dress up with us.
If it's a wedding and you're invited to that, or if it's like a religious thing and you're going there, you know, if there's a religious ceremony, sure. I mean, I feel like that's the sign of respect. You're in the culture, you're in the area where, you know, you have to kind of dress to show your respect. I feel like if you're just doing it because it matches with your outfit that day and you look cool, I think that's like a little bit,
You're not about that at all?
That segues really nicely into my question. I want to ask about, you talk a lot, your art talks, it's great by the way, a lot about South Asian culture becoming sort of mainstream, being amalgamated, being used in some ways. Is there a point, like, is it bitter, is it bittersweet, or is ever there a point where you see someone embracing South Asian culture while not being South Asian, that you kind of smile and are like, hey, that's my people there? Does that ever make you feel happy?
I mean, it depends. I don't know. I mean, the book itself was written, I mean, I'm a Desi girl, so I wrote the book for other Desi girls and guys who were kind of growing up in the West, sort of, you know, expressing themselves in kind of that dual personality, or kind of finding that balance between our traditional culture and the Western culture that we adopt, that kind of we appreciate and kind of make our own.
So my friend Othman is like your biggest fan ever, and like the second I found out that you were gonna be on the show, I like immediately messaged him and I was like, what do you want me to ask her for you? So he sent back a really thoughtful question and basically just said, you know, right now, more and more we're seeing this emergence of like first generation South Asian identity in Canada, and he cited a lot of like really incredible South Asian Canadians like Jagmeet Singh and Lily Singh and Babu the painter and yourself, and he basically wanted to ask what advice do you have to young South Asians that are like living in Canada and trying to walk the line between two cultures, and how do you embrace your brownness in everyday life?
So I mean, I used to get bullied a lot in school, like elementary school, all throughout. Basically, even college. Like, it was just a constant thing where my brownness was used against me. It was kind of like, you know, you guys are hairy, you smell bad, you're this and that. And then when you realize that the same things, they use the word packy dot a lot for like the bindies, you know, they use the term like terrorists, all this kind of stuff. And then when you're, you know, years pass and you realize that this packy dot is being worn at Coachella as like, now somebody else is embracing it as something positive, you kind of go, okay, so everything that you said that was wrong with me wasn't actually my problem, it was your problem. So I think embracing your brownness is, I always say, like, believe in yourself before, and, you know, kind of just stop listening to everybody else, which, you know, it's in the book. It's basically dodging bad advice and dodging bad, you know, negativity that kind of comes at you using your nationality or your skin color as something that you should be ashamed of. And always keep in mind that you're not alone. There's so many people that are going through this with you. When I started my Instagram, I had no idea that anybody else would relate. And constantly, like every single day, I find out that people reach out to me and they go, you know what, I went through the same thing. And that gives me comfort. So I feel like that's one of those things that you just kind of have to believe in yourself and find a network. Like for me, online was really important because I found a community online that let me know that what I was going through wasn't just my experience.
Well, Maria, I think that's some great advice. You know, I'm half Guyanese, which is kind of Indian, and then half white, and so for me, it struck a chord. But now we're gonna move on to a really fun game. So we like to call this game onside-offside. So you're gonna be playing with Teddy.
Here you go.
Gracie and Christian are gonna be asking you guys questions, and so pretty much you are gonna up if you like it, down if you don't like it. And so all of these scenarios that they're gonna be asking about actually came from your book. So we'll see how this goes.
Okay, so onside or offside, using social media to slide into your crush's DMs. Yes.
I do this all the time. I do this all the time. I'm so sorry.
I don't think if you're sliding into their DMs, you aren't confident enough. Just post comments around their picture. Love you so much, baby. Please give me some love.
No, it's bold. I respect
There you go.
I feel like that's kind of stalkerish. Next one, Christian.
Onside or
Like a
Yeah,
random
I
guy
do
from
that.
India.
onside or offside cat cafes.
Cat cafes.
Now I have to buy
that's
your
bad.
book.
Yeah. Yeah, they're bad.
I lived in Japan for a while, and I will say that maybe I haven't been to a cat cafe in Canada, but in Japan, I mean, cat cafes are where it's at.
I hate cats and coffee, so.
Asking people in long-term relationships if they're gonna get married soon.
I think it's a hilarious way to just introduce conflict into their relationships. So absolutely. Send it on, DM them. DM one of them and be like, when are you getting married?
You're actually not a good person
This
for
one
that.
is vintage. You're gonna like this one. Onside or offside, older relatives telling younger relatives that they're gaining weight, then encouraging them to eat more.
Is that a positive thing? I mean, I would love to be encouraged to eat more, so.
But would you like to be made fun of? Or like being like, oh, you're so fat, have another plate of food?
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, you know, just embrace it, man. If you want to go for that third, go
And
for
we
that.
need that homemade food from like a good cooking aunt.
Exactly.
All right, we got time for one more question.
That's fine. Okay. Well, this is seasonal, so this is good. Onside or offside, telling your best friend that their Halloween costume is culturally offensive.
Love it.
Or with them.
Love it.
I think you're doing them a favor.
That too.
Bad stuff can happen.
Or you don't want to like hurt the people
Or hurt
that
people's
they're
feelings.
mocking, you know,
Like, yeah.
or
Maria, what do you
appropriating
do?
or whatever it is.
Just educate your friend, you know? Just be like, hey, we've been friends for a while. Why would you do this? You know?
We just agreed on something.
Oh,
Can you believe it?
hallelujah. All right, Maria, I'd like to thank you, and I guess all these guys would like to thank you. Thank you so much for coming and chilling with us and talking.
Maria.
Thanks for having
You're
me.
pretty cool.
Maria.
The best advice my mother gave me. You know when you go to Swiss Chalet and you get the little bowls of hot water with the lemon in it? Don't drink it. She sort of led by example. I think my mom wasn't a confident kid growing up, and I think somehow she managed to raise me in a way that produced this right out of the gate. And I have no idea why, but a confident kid. My greatest accomplishment in life so far. Gosh, I hope I haven't made it yet, but professionally, I think I would say last year we had a chance to interview Trevor Noah, and he had a full day of press in Canada, tons of different outlets, and apparently his people told us that his time spent with us at the social was the best, and he was really, really pleased. Professionally, thank goodness I haven't had too many, but I think it's sort of an overarching lesson. Maybe don't react right away to your superiors with a hot head. Don't be a baby about it. Just have a timeout in a corner, turn around like you're a child, and think about it. Act cerebrally rather than emotionally. You know what? My 15-year-old self is a pretty good kid. I did well. I tell her to keep doing well in school, keep choosing those nice friends, keep that after-school job, keep playing sports, keep acting in the school play. But I guess if I really had to hone in on that 15-year-old self, keep writing every day and reading. Read good stuff. Read the kind of stuff where you're like, how did they write this? Keep reading that stuff.
Okay, so I want to bring up a couple of things that I saw coming in online. Laila, I'm gonna start with you.
Let's hear it.
This is coming from Lolita. She said, sometimes things are just easier to express with pictures rather than words, talking about the emoji conversation. What do you think is easier to express with emojis rather than words? What topic?
I'm like, oh my God. If I'm laughing. Like, people can't tell if I say something funny, and then I have to use a laughing face so they know it's actually funny.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so this one came in from someone else online, and they said that any hairstyle is open for anyone to try, but absorbing a culture and making it your own without paying homage to where it comes from is where appropriation starts. Gracie, do you agree with this?
I just think, oh, this is so hard. Like, I think this is really hard. I think that I understand what that person is saying, but that line is so hard to draw. Like, it's so hard to say, like, this, that they get, so to me, it's like, hey, if a group of people have been harassed and have been really, you know, victimized for this specific thing, let's just not. Like, let's not try and figure it out. It's like, let's just not do that, you know?
Okay, I hear you. Now, I have this for you, Christian. So this came in from JD, and he said, I can walk into a men's washroom and pay $1 for a contraceptive. I'm in control of it. Why can't women have the same option? He's really asking you this.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. The difference being is that, I don't know, personally, there's a lot of access to Plan B already, and what I was saying is not that there should be no access to Plan B. Of course there should be access to Plan B.
Sorry, I'm sorry,
no,
this is my segment.
I know. I'm just saying, the whole thing is like there's this, and again, another hard fine line to draw is where does it become, you know, like I said, Plan A? Because the line number one should be just being safe.
My only thing is like part of the thing of saying that it's like really risky, the part of like the whole sexual deviant thing that comes with being associated with, well, Plan B should be your Plan B, is that then you feel like shame when you have to go up to someone at a pharmacy and be like, hey, can I get Plan B? And I'm saying having something that doesn't have a human on the other side is like kind of comforting.
A little bit easier.
Let me challenge you on that. Number one, you can get condoms from machines all over the place, and other contraceptives. Number two, the fact that you're using Plan B means that you didn't make that it was unplanned in the first place. Like it was just sort of impromptu.
That's not true.
That's
not true.
Well, probably.
Hold on, let's hear what Teddy has to say.
Haven't you ever like had an assignment due the next day and then just been like, oh, I'm gonna go to sleep, and then the next morning I'll deal with it? I feel like that can happen a lot too, because it isn't pleasant to take. Some people might then psych themselves out and be like, oh, maybe I'll get lucky, or maybe
factors involved, like drugs or alcohol. Like, have you ever had a moment, a lapse, you know, where you just weren't firing it all on all cylinders?
Tough. It would be even better if just the condoms were right there. That's the only fear that I think people are having.
But I think Gracie's right. Condoms can break. Like,
it's true. You should just have both. You should have every possible harm reduction option.
By that
right?
standard, Plan B can fail too. But everything can fail.
And then there's you know, there are layers.
Yes,
it was a great show tonight, you guys. We will debate it online more, and people can continue to talk about it online. But it was a great debate. So good job.
Rad.
Yay.
I believe that one cause that doesn't get enough attention is being yourself. Yeah, that may seem like a cliche and overused term, but the thing is, once you actually go to be yourself, someone will make fun of you for being who you actually are. Someone will call you out, and it will continuously do that, even though all you're trying to do is be yourself. That brings you to a point where you're like, they told me to be myself, but now I can't be myself because I will be made fun of for being myself, which is ridiculous. People shouldn't think that. People should just be themselves. So I think that should be talked about.
That society needs to become more aware of. It's more of a positive one. It's the diversity we see in movies now. We have come so far since the 60s when it was just white Americans starring in movies. With a token black character, now we have movies that star just all across the board, like black people, white people, Hispanics, Asians, like you name it, they're in movies. And it's just so great to see that Hollywood has come so far since when it was just white Americans being in movies, and that's a great cause.
One thing I didn't get to say is, or one thing that I feel like I didn't say as well as I could have, is that what I think we're talking about and might have strayed away from is the fact that we all sort of agreed that it's important to have contraceptive options available. The debate was about whether having what some perceive and what I might perceive as having too much access to Plan B, which is an emergency contraceptive, as opposed to a sort of pre-contraceptive that deals with it before there's actual zygotic fusion, is that it sort of might incentivize the fact that you can deal with these things later. You can deal with unprotected sex later. The important thing is to deal with it beforehand and to plan in advance as much as possible, because forget about the fact that contraceptives can fail, but there's also diseases, and not to mention mistakes that can be made that you might regret later, that can't be undone by any medication or anything that you can buy. The important thing is to plan in advance, and that's why I think we need to really question whether having what could be too much access to something that only deals with emergency contraception could be a bad thing.
We're split siblings. You already swapped so much.
No, I just want to curl on the what?
When I rubbed it against there's a camera in my way.
No rain, fossil lucky. No.
I couldn't find it, so I couldn't super glue it back on.
That was beautiful.
All one take.
We're so good at this.